Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South, wrote a piece today. My way too early ranking of the SEC's top 10 quarterbacks entering 2025. I wanted to take a look at that, and I didn't think that it was overwhelmingly shocking. He starts the list with Taylon Green at number 10. He did slide Gunnar Stockton in there at number 9 based on really just one outing there for Stockton. Austin Simmons is going to be Ole Miss's new quarterback. He's got him at number 8. I wanted to read into that piece. He said, look, the Georgia drive, and Simmons did play a drive against the Bulldogs and went right down the field and scored a touchdown. Said what Simmons did in rare relief work of Jackson Dart deserves to be remembered in what was easily the biggest win of Lane Kiffin's career. When the Southpaw led Ole Miss on that scoring drive, he showed a glimpse of what the future could be, although in confirming why he beat out Walker Howard for the backup job, which was significant preseason development after the LSU transferred, was billed as the quarterback of the future in Oxford. Simmons' poise could be the difference in making 2025 not feel like a rebuilding year for Ole Miss. So that's going to be a new face there. He's got him at number 8. Marcel Reed, he's got at 7. Nico Iamaleava in there at 6. I haven't gotten to Garrett Nussmeier yet. Eventually we will, but not at 5. That's where Diego Pavia comes in. Arch Manning at Texas is number 4. I think that's pretty high praise for Arch there. Lenora Sellers comes in at number 3. I'm curious to see what the preseason thoughts are on Sellers. I did not think he played all that well against LSU back in September, and then by the end of the season, he was really, really productive and obviously made some huge plays in that game against Clemson, so he's got him at number 3. DJ Lagway from Florida at number 2, and the number 1 quarterback entering the 2025 season in the SEC, according to Connor O'Gara, is Garrett Nussmeier. I'll read you from the piece. He said, if there's one SEC quarterback that I need to just pick apart a defense for 60 minutes, I'm picking Nussmeier, period. We'll see if Lagway, Sellers, and Manning develop into better passers, but for now, Nussmeier owns that title. Even if it means he can throw an occasional interception, 1 interception every 44 attempts isn't the end of the world when you can make NFL throws like Nussmeier can. I love that even after a forgettable performance for most of the game against Ole Miss, he still found answers late. That's the mark of a true gunslinger. Nussmeier is the SEC's best quarterback, and there aren't 5 better returning quarterbacks in the country. That's coming from an impartial source there at Saturday Down South. The Garrett Nussmeier is one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the country and the best returning quarterback in the SEC. I know there are a lot of people that just don't like the style of play, don't like the turnovers, don't like the inability to really hurt teams on the ground. And I get it. But I also think that you've got to consider the entire package. And when you look at what Garrett Nussmeier did in his first year, this year, I would consider it a success. Was it perfect? No. Was he the first team all-league quarterback? No. Did LSU win enough games? No. Did he win the Heisman Trophy? No. Was it a solid season? Yeah. And there were really high highs. Consider, I know that he made a huge mistake in the South Carolina game, but he also came back late in that game and set up the game-winning score with a ridiculous throw on a 3rd down on an over route. And I think it was Kyron Lacey that caught it near the left sideline. He, against good defenses like Ole Miss and South Carolina, he made crucial late-game throws. I think he's only going to get better. I wish he ran a little bit faster. That is an aspect of the quarterback position that wasn't really that important 20 years ago that now most teams have.
Or even just be more willing to.
Yeah, and that's my guy Big Fave's biggest thing. He's like, well, I just need him to tuck it and run for 100 yards. Like, Fave, I don't think he's going to get 100, but he can pick up a couple 3rd downs every Saturday. And that's something that he's got to look at. And look, we've talked to Garrett about that in the midweek media sessions. He has said, I know that I need to run more. It's just not something I've ever really relied on. He's sat back and thrown the ball his entire quarterbacking life. And I think he will be a little bit more willing to run next year. We saw Jaden Daniels make that progression in his 5th year. I'm not talking about to the Heisman Trophy. I'm talking about being willing to take more shots. That was the big knock on Jaden all the offseason leading into 2023. This quarterback will not take chances. He tucks the ball. He holds it too long. He runs too much. He's too cautious. And he worked his way out of that. And I think Garrett Nussmeier has to work on 2 decision-making skills. One is the interceptions when he's missing reads. The other is when to tuck it and go. And I think it's reasonable to expect over the course of an offseason, when you've got the kind of football acumen that Garrett does, that he's going to develop. I really believe that. And I think that there are, a lot of LSU fans that aren't completely sold. But again, there were probably a lot of LSU fans that weren't completely sold on Jaden Daniels because of the things that I just laid out entering 2023, and he went nuts. I'm completely comfortable with where LSU is at quarterback, and you're looking at a non-biased, guy that covers the league, and he thinks that Garrett Nussmeier is the best. If you're an LSU fan that's not wild about Nussmeier, just consider to yourself, would you take Nico over him? Would you take Lenoris Sellers over him? Maybe the answer is yes to some people. I'm not there. I like the guy that LSU's got, and I think you're going to see this more and more as time goes on. We'll see if there's any movement in the transfer portal in the spring, but I think you've probably got a pretty good idea of who the quarterbacks are in the SEC, and I think when we go to SEC Media Days coming up, I'm not sure where it is. I think it may be in Hoover, but it might be in Atlanta this year. They were just in Dallas. I'm not sure. Doesn't matter. That's in July. I think when you get there, I think Garrett Nussmeier is going to be voted the first-team quarterback. I think it's possible that Arch gets some votes based on that name brand, but he hasn't produced. I think it's possible that Sellers gets some votes, and certainly DJ Lagway is going to be in that mix as well. And if you told me as an LSU fan that you'd rather have Lagway than Nussmeier, I'm not going to fight you on that. Lagway looked like he really turned a corner there late in the season after he got hurt. But LSU's got a guy that I think is good enough to do anything that they want to do. I think Garrett Nussmeier is good enough to win the SEC. It's going to take a great team around him. I think Garrett Nussmeier is good enough to make the playoffs. I think Garrett Nussmeier is good enough to win some playoff games. I do. I think he's that good. I think he's got to be better than he was this past year for LSU to reach those goals. You can't play a half like he did against Texas A&M in the second half. You can't have that Alabama game happen twice. There was a lot of good. Ole Miss at the end was really good. South Carolina near the end was really good. And then, of course, in the non-conference games, he was great. I thought he was really good in the Vanderbilt game as well. I thought he was really good at Arkansas, just kind of managing things, even though the numbers weren't gaudy. LSU ran the ball pretty well that day. But I think it speaks volumes when you've got a guy like Conor O'Gara, who has no tie to LSU, saying, this is the guy I would take if you gave me any quarterback in the SEC. And I think that I'm kind of just trying to present that to the LSU fans to go, hey, I think LSU can be okay at quarterback, even though people were disenchanted with the amount of turnovers. Those things come down. I think LSU's got a guy that can do some great things next year. So does Conor O'Gara, evidently. If you're looking for your LSU football coverage all year round, even though we're in basketball and baseball's coming, football, Hunt on LSU. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you find your podcast. All football, all year round, Hunt on LSU. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.